we'll let everyone get loaded on in here, and we will start the chat. We got 49. That's what we'd like to see.
Oh, we just went through. Not the first one, though.
142. Good deal. Okay. Hey, Mrs. Smith. Okay. Let's get down to the very latest as far as Michael. Let's see here. Pull this up. There it is. Okay. Let's go ahead and get down to business here, and we'll talk a little bit about what's going on. This is the very latest as far as the storm is concerned. A couple areas out here in the Atlantic, nothing really to be concerned about. Leslie's moving away from us, so all eyes here are on Michael. So latest update came in as of 7 o'clock. The winds had increased to 60 miles an hour. It's now moving north at 7 miles per hour. We should look through the discussion. The forecast has it up to a Category 2 hurricane at 100 miles an hour on Wednesday. There is a possibility, a very real possibility, that this could get up to maybe a 3. So I do want people to be kind of aware of that, you know, as of right now it's 100, but it's certainly within the realm of possibility, especially when you look at some of the computer models, that this could end up being a 3. Now, that being said, where it's going and our impacts aren't, you know, that's not gospel right now. So you can see basically all of our area is in the cone currently, and anywhere I would say from basically Mobile to Tampa needs to be on guard as far as this storm is concerned. Now, whether it goes over here, whether it goes over here, or somewhere in between, will have a big impact as to what we end up seeing here. Obviously, you know, if the center of the storm actually goes in the center of the cone, which honestly almost never happens, that would put a good chunk of our area on the western side of the storm, which is definitely where you would rather be. It's not picture perfect, but it's better. And then as opposed to on that eastern side. But keep in mind, in the cone here, what this cone is, it's all is a historical record. The past 5 years, 2/3 of the time, the center of the storm stays inside the cone. Now that means there's a third of the time that it ends up outside of the cone. So you have to be aware that, you know, it's not like definite that it's going to stay in the cone. And also keep in mind that you have significant impacts that can occur outside of the cone, you know. So just a little bit of an understanding there as far as what can happen. As far as the chances of us seeing tropical storm force winds, right now, you look down there and you get up into that 70-80% chance, you know, for our area. So there's a really good chance we'll see at least tropical storm force winds. As far as hurricane force winds, much lower chance right now. Those chances are running in basically in that 5 to 20% range, are the chances, at least right now. Looking at the timing of the winds, most likely, you see the most likely arrival time of tropical storm force winds would be basically like tomorrow and most of Tuesday are going to be your prep day. Tonight or early tomorrow is when they'll hoist hurricane watches for our area, and I do expect that to be the case. We'll see if they do it by tonight. Looking at the latest GFS, this is the 18Z run of the GFS, so this is basically the afternoon run. The evening run will start coming in here in a few hours, probably about 10, 11 o'clock. And then the European comes in around 1 o'clock in the morning. So we will have to kind of watch that. But the afternoon run of the GFS, really no changes. It was maybe a little bit farther to the west and pretty much the exact same intensity as what the 12Z run was. So not a significant change right there, but it did stay on the western side of the envelope, whereas the European model has been trending a little bit more to the east, both of which would be here. But a storm, let's say this storm came in here versus here, the impacts for our area would be significant. Even though that's not a big distance, say from Apalachicola to say Destin, Fort Walton Beach, so that's what we're looking at. And, that's not a very big distance. And especially when you're talking about the error in a forecast coming out that far, so we're here on Sunday and we're still, 3 days away from landfall. You have all day Monday, all day Tuesday, all day into Wednesday. So we'll say 3 days. And so, that difference isn't a big deal. So you can see, that would have a big impact as to what we end up seeing. But right now, the GFS would be a terrible scenario for most of Northwest Florida. The European model isn't exactly a bunch of roses, but it's a little bit better for most of us. And you see right there, it's a little bit stronger, and it comes in like more towards like Apalachicola, Indian Pass, St. George Island, that area. Now that would cause devastating storm surge flooding here up in the Appalachia Bay, but it would also put a good chunk of our area, not all of it, on the western side of it. And while it wouldn't be perfect and it's not going to be great, you at least start taking storm surge flooding out of the scenario for a large part of our area. You at least begin to decrease the winds because your winds are coming from land as opposed to off the water. It would be better if, say, the European for most of our area. Now, Apalachicola, it would not be good for you. It would not be good in Indian Pass, down in that area. It would not be good for the Big Bend. But you'll start to see some big improvement as far as the impacts across the western part of the Panhandle from Panama City and especially over towards Pensacola. So just kind of, giving you an idea of the, distance between where these storms are and what we end up seeing. These are, you see the spaghetti models as far as, where this is. This is, the 0Z stuff is now coming in for the spaghetti models. And you notice that there's a pretty tight gradient right now from, basically the Big Bend over to Destin, as far as that's where it kind of paints most of them. So under this scenario here, right now, it's, the GFS kind of lies on the western side of the envelope, whereas the European is kind of lying a little bit more towards the center part of the envelope as far as where these storms would go, or where the models are saying it's going to go. Yeah, again, there's the European model. And the European model is a little bit slower as well. The American model is a little bit faster and a little bit farther to the west. The European ensemble models, so basically they have little subtle differences and keep running the model with those subtle differences. And they get obviously a bunch of different strengths, tracks, and everything like that. And you see that's the main operational one. But then you see, it could be as far as with some of the ensembles, as far south as almost Tampa, and then as far west as basically Pensacola. But, there is a fair amount of, while there's differences between all the models, there is a fair amount of certainty that this storm is going to come somewhere in the state of Florida and somewhere between Tampa and Pensacola, and obviously we're kind of almost in the middle of that, and that's why we have the concern here. Someone was just asking about red tide. If the storm comes here, it doesn't even have to come here because it's going to churn up. It's going to churn up the Gulf of Mexico so much with the wave action. and with the mixing and everything, that I think it's going to kind of disperse to a certain extent, or at least, you know, spread out the red tide a lot more, you know, because red tide is kind of a naturally occurring thing. And so what happens is, though, is it tends to kind of feed off of itself, and especially when there's nothing to mix the water and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, obviously a hurricane, huge waves, the wind and everything, that I expect that to, you know, like I said, it's not going to disperse it from the standpoint of, like, because it doesn't necessarily go away, but I think it would help kind of spread it out and, you know, minimize the concentration of it. So if there's a plus from this storm, it would be that that I think the red tide wouldn't be a big deal. So you know, the red tide would, you know, I think those issues would go away. But if you're talking about a Category 2 or Category 3 storm, that's, you know, we don't want that. A tropical storm could do this very nicely. So, looking at the intensity forecast, and these are some things that are, you know, a little bit concerning. These are the 0Z runs, and now you're getting into, you know, some indications of their, look, now everything is like a 1, 2, and even up to a 3 as far as the intensity forecast. So now it's looking more likely that you're looking at, you know, maybe a strong Cat 1, Cat 2, or possibly even a Cat 3 with this storm as it moves in. It's moving into a more favorable environment because the Gulf waters are above average. It's also going into a less wind shear environment. And so both those things are going to kind of work towards, you know, allowing this thing, I think, to strengthen at least somewhat rapidly. No, that was last night. So these are the ensembles for the GFS. And notice how most of the ensembles for the GFS are basically Mobile to Appalach, whereas when we were talking about the ensembles for the Euro are kind of more Pensacola to Tampa. So you see, you know, basically the Euro's a little bit east, the GFS is a little bit west. They're both of similar intensity. So at this point, you know, it's just a matter of, you know, kind of watching, waiting. We're getting the data from the hurricane hunters coming in tonight. That will help go into those models and, you know, maybe give us a little bit more of an idea, a little bit more certainty as to where this thing's going to go. What I'll tell you is that, you know, if you're at home right now, thinking about this, I mean, there's certainly a real possibility that we will, you know, we could see minimal impacts, especially if this thing's, you know, continues like on the Euro track and it starts heading a little bit more to the east. At least more of our area would see smaller impacts. But, you know, there's still a very realistic possibility that we have a major Category 3 hurricane barreling right through the heart of Northwest Florida. And so if I were you at home, I would be preparing for the Category 3 moving right through the heart of Northwest Florida. Not because it's, you know, a guarantee it's going to happen, because we just don't know that yet. But what we, you know, that's what you need to prepare for, is kind of that worst case scenario. So be thinking about that. You know, like I said, we'll go under watches, I think, tonight or early tomorrow. The EOCs are going to start making some of those decisions, I think, once those watches come out, as far as, you know, where we will have evacuations. You know, obviously places like Cape San Blas, St. George Island, places like that that are really susceptible. Indian Pass down in that area, you know, those will be some of the first places to go. But, you know, if we're getting up there towards the possibility of a Category 3, we could see some additional types of evacuations that we haven't seen in recent years, because most of the time we've had like a tropical storm or maybe a Category 1 hurricane, whereas they kind of keep, you know, it's more of a shelter-in-place scenario, whereas this may call for additional types of evacuations that for people that haven't had to do that in recent years. I mean, you really are honestly, last time we had even a chance really for a major hurricane to come here, and it never even really happened like directly, was, you have to go back to the mid-2000s, obviously, with some of those big storms with Ivan, Katrina, and all that kind of stuff, and they never even moved through the heart of our area, but we got kind of the side impacts. And then before that's Opal back in '95. So it's been a long time. That's 23 years since Opal. You know, so Obviously, I would be preparing for kind of that worst case scenario, but I'm telling you, it's not a guarantee it's going to happen. But you know, you got to make the preparations before you know exactly what it's going to do. And unfortunately, that's just the reality of the science, you know, and our skill at being able to forecast it. And so, you guys at home need to, you know, kind of just stay ahead of it and realize it may all be for naught, but you know, it's better than not doing anything or waiting till obviously the last minute to do that. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, at least right now. So let's see. Hurricane hunters have been out there this evening. What I wanted to show y'all a couple other things when it came to the models. There's the GFS. Here's the UK Met. UK Met, and notice the UK Met is a little bit more east. So it's the same intensity basically as the GFS and the Euro, but it's even a little bit farther east. And again, you know, that's not to say we wouldn't have any impacts here, but our impacts for most of our area would be pretty minor. With more significant impacts, the most significant impacts basically kind of, you know, Apalachicola, obviously eastward. That's with the UK Met, and then Canadian. And the Canadian's been kind of the one that's been a little bit farther to the west of all the models, and that's kind of like that Mississippi, Alabama. It's also quite a bit weaker too. It's just a tropical storm, but you know. Right now, you know, the GFS and the Euro are both basically, you know, major hurricanes moving into, you know, at least somewhere into our area. Looking at the timing of the winds, basically you look there, and this is Wednesday morning at 4 a.m. So even at Wednesday morning at 4 a.m. Central Time, you know, there's still no tropical storm force winds. They're just now beginning to come on shore. And as we move through the day on Wednesday, you see that. And then you have basically 59 mile per hour winds coming on to Cape San Blas. And then, you know, that's the extent of, at this point, how far it goes out, you know, by 1 on Wednesday. So at 1 on Wednesday, it looks like if the track doesn't change, you would have tropical storm force winds area wide with as high as, say, 60 mile an hour winds over parts of Bay, Gulf, and Franklin counties. And then that would continue to, as the storm moves inland, continue to move inland as well. But you notice, you know, on this approach, if this happened, you know, Pensacola would never even get tropical storm force winds sustained. Most of our area would get it, but you know, if you get over there towards Fort Walton Beach, you'd be very much on the edge of even seeing sustained tropical storm force winds. We'll go to, was it the European significant wave height and direction? This is the European model with the significant wave height and direction. So this is as we move throughout time. And it's going to be in this time period here that you see that we would see the biggest wave action along our coast, and you'd be looking at, you know, that would still, I mean, even if, you know, the storm kind of heads in this area, we're still going to see significant beach erosion and things of that nature. The storm surge flooding wouldn't be nearly as bad, but, you know, we would still see significant erosion on the beaches as a result. And you see with that, with the onshore, the waves propagating onshore, and then watch how quickly as that storm moves by, bam, northerly winds, the wave action moves out. Look how quickly it dies down by Saturday. So you go from like, you know, 10, you know, 15 foot waves to basically nothing in like, you know, a couple days. Amazing how quickly it dies down. And you see like the max up there, max wave was like 36 feet, which is, you know, pretty incredible. We lived here when Opal hit, and it did a lot of severe damage. It did. And, you know, the thing about Opal is that Opal could have been a whole lot worse. Opal started pulling in dry air and started weakening as it was coming in. It was still a massive storm, and so the surge was really bad with Opal, but the winds as a whole and the rain wasn't as big of a deal. This one here has a potential, you know, if it continues to come in strengthening, which is what we think is going to happen, at least the way it looks right now, that's a whole different ballgame when you have a strengthening hurricane making landfall versus a weakening hurricane making landfall. And this one would bring in, you know, a significant storm surge, heavy rainfall. You know, we'd be talking about probably at least 4 to 8 inches. The good news is right now, everything's kind of pointing towards this thing moving. You know, and that's a good thing. You know, it's not going to sit like with Florence or anything like that. That doesn't look like it's going to be, you know, the scenario that we're looking at, which would be, you know, again, very, very good. This is the European, and again, what's lifting the storm to the north is this huge trough out to the west. And here's this big ridge that's been baking us and keeping us high and dry. But watch what happens as we move throughout time. Notice how that ridge begins to slide east because this trough is moving east, and the trough is basically pushing the ridge and going to weaken it. And that's going to allow for this storm to shoot the gap between the two and literally just move right up over our area. You know, and now how quickly this weakens, how quickly it moves out, all that stuff will, you know, the subtle difference as to when that turn occurs. And then when that turn occurs, as you kind of look out over time, that can change the landfall location by a pretty significant amount. So that's why there's still uncertainty as to exactly where it's going to go. But the mechanisms steering it are very well known, and the models are in a lot of agreement. But it's going to be just those little subtle differences as to when all this stuff occurs is to impacts whether, you know, does it come over here, does it come over here, or does it stay, you know, somewhere in between? There you go. Don't forget to, you see that right there? Download that app right there. It's our new weather app, and you get all sorts of good information and everything on it. We get custom forecasts. There we go. You get custom video forecasts, so you can look at, you know, what's going to be. We send out tropical weather updates. We have a tropical one that's going to be coming up in just a bit. You get the watches, warnings, all that kind of stuff. You still get, you know, the radar and everything, and we got the, you know, the cone is on there and all that kind of stuff. And that's the WJHG weather app. It's for iPhone, Android, tablets, you know, the whole 9 yards. So, and someone was asking about the strength of it, so we can touch that, and you can see Michael, category 2, and then at that point, max sustained winds of 100 miles an hour, gust to 120, and that's as of 1 o'clock on the 10th, so that's Wednesday. At that point, it'd be moving north-northeast at 5 miles an hour. So that's kind of handy. So that's the new weather app. Download it, it's free, all that kind of good. Okay, like I said, we're going to go on a little bit late tonight because we have football. And so be patient with us. Hopefully the game doesn't go too long tonight. But so we'll be on a little bit late and have the latest then. You know, maybe if the game starts looking like it's going too late on the later side, maybe I'll jump back in here once the 0Z GFS starts coming in. We'll just kind of take a quick peek at what's going on with that. But other than that, I think that's about everything. Bridges, way too early to say about bridges. Way too early to say about schools. You know, I mean, if I were a betting man, I mean, I would say probably not Wednesday. But, you know, I mean, again, if this thing trends a little bit more east, you know, it's not going to have a huge impact. It may be like we don't have school Wednesday, but then by Thursday, everyone's back. If we take a direct hit, we ain't going to have school at least until next week. And depending upon how bad it is, even longer than that. But it's just too early to say right now as to whether there's going to be school or not. or whether the bridges, does the new app have layers? Yeah. So the new app has layers, and you see here, this is basically the radar. You can go load the temperatures. You can look at the satellite. So there's that. But here's the kind of cool thing, is you can then go and say pick, and then pick whatever you want. So like if you want wind speed, okay? And then you can take that and drag here and kind of put it in your little toolbar. And then, oops. There we go. Okay, and then we can close that. So now it's like taking hold, and now we've put in the winds. You know, so yeah, it has. Did you say 43 inches of rain? No, like 4 to 8 inches of rain, I would say. But it all depends on the exact track too. But here, let me show you all. Right now I think I have most of this is 3 to 5 inches, but it easily could be more than that. But you know, if your heaviest rain is going to be just west of the center and then well east of the center, you know, so if the center ends up coming in over here, that's going to pinch the heaviest rainfall a little bit more east, and we'll start seeing that kind of 1 to 2 inch creep more into our area as opposed to the 3 to 5 or 4 to 8 inches. You know, and again, we'll see. This is all subject to change, but conservatively, I'm going 3 to 5, but I think it could be even higher than that. Let's see. We want to see Charlie. Charlie is in bed. He is in bed. Let's see. I did have dinner with him tonight, so that was good. That's probably my last dinner I'm going to get. So, you want to see Charlie? There he is. Snoozing away with the cat still in the room. Oh, there you go. Technology, isn't it great? He's finally better though. No fever since like yesterday at noon. So we're on the mend. He's heading to school tomorrow because we live in Walton County. So Walton County has school tomorrow. I know Bay doesn't, but Walton does. Direct hit means no electricity for a week or more because, I mean, yeah, the power outages could be a huge issue if we take a direct hit. Are they going to do a mandatory evacuation on the beach? I do not know that. Possibly. But, you know, even on the beach, I don't know if they would do for the whole beach. I mean, there's plenty of places on the beach that are, you know, high elevation. I mean, you know, here at the station, it would take like a 5 with a massive storm surge to get water near the TV station, you know. So if that's the case, if your home's well built, you know, it's probably more of a shelter-in-place type scenario. But you listen to the powers that be. EOC folks will have more information on that tomorrow. But, you know, I don't think it's like, you know, anymore, they don't, unless you're in a, you know, a flooding situation, you know, with water or, you know, maybe beachfront or something like that, you know, you just can't evacuate everybody. It's just not feasible. So, you know, they learned from Hurricane Floyd back in, I think it was 99, as far as limiting who can stay and who needs to go. Yeah, so make sure everyone, you know, gas up, keep your cars, you know, relatively full, but, you know, don't take more than you need. But, you know, it's, saw someone mentioning gas, but yeah, this type of situation, I'll fill up tonight on my way home because obviously I'm here for the long term. But, you know, I don't want my car getting low on gas at all. So I'll just kind of, you know, I'll just keep it full. But I'm not going to go fill up bunches of containers and all that kind of stuff. Let's see, cooler temps. Will we see cooler temps once this moves out? I do think that may happen. Here, let me show you that. So this is the GFS, and notice this right here. That's our trough kicking this thing out. And then here's the big trough on Monday. And I think that may give us a little taste of fall briefly. Drag a cold front through here. So it may not happen right away, but by Monday, I do expect a nice cool down. How likely is it to be a 3? It's difficult to say, Christy, but it's certainly possible. The GFS and the Euro are saying it would be a 3. The official forecast is still a 2, but it's still 100 miles an hour, and it's, 111 is a category 3. So it's not even 100, 111, 11. It's 11 miles an hour. It's not that big of a difference. What will it look like Thursday afternoon? By Thursday afternoon, it depends. If the European verifies, the European is kind of like 24 hours behind the American model. And I'm going to have to run here in a minute so I can get ready for the late news. But you see the difference here. The yellow is the European, the orange is the American. And notice how they're both pretty close to the same intensity. But notice here we are Wednesday, and the American's making landfall, and the European's hanging in behind it. And the American races off, and then Thursday is when the European says. So, we're still looking at the official forecast, I think, is 1 o'clock, about that time on Wednesday. But, if the European verifies, it could be as late as Thursday. No school closings yet. We're in a hotel on vacation. Do we need to be packing up to leave in a few days? Oh, you don't need to pack up. Not yet. They'll tell you if you need to go. And there's a chance that it may end up happening. But right now, if you're here on vacation, you don't have a home to protect here, most likely, because you're on vacation. Unless it's your house, but and you're in a hotel. You just, when they tell you to go, just pack up and go. It's a nice thing, I guess, about just paying to stay at a hotel. In the meantime, enjoy, if you can survive the red tide. Will Tallahassee be hit hard? Certainly possible Tallahassee could. Because they're, under every scenario here, Tallahassee's on the eastern side. Just about every scenario. It's on that eastern side, or very close to like with Hermine. So yeah, Tallahassee certainly needs to be watching this. Too difficult. Storm surge, too early to say right now, just because of the uncertainty with the forecast track and everything. But I think starting tomorrow, they will initiate the storm surge forecast, and then we should have, we'll be able to show that and give you a better idea. Specify when to expect the rain, Tuesday or Wednesday. Tomorrow should be mainly dry. Tuesday, there'll be scattered showers, but not like a wall of water. The wall of water really won't start till Wednesday, most likely. That constant rain. We showed spaghetti. The data roll in here. Where are you, data? Oh. So, this is just climate, so ignore that one. That's more of a historically, that's where it would go. But you see up here, pretty much everything is you know, from Mobile eastward, with most of it here in Northwest Florida. That's what we've been seeing. Oh, no problem, Shane. Remember, Eloise missed Panama City, but destroyed the buildings along the beach. So what is it? Yeah, Eloise is honestly the benchmark storm for our area. And that was 1972? 3? No, it was 75. Eloise. Okay. It's 1975. There it is. Yep.
Yeah.
September 13th, 1975. Storm. Have you seen the News Herald is reporting storm going in between Port St. Joe and Apalachicola? I mean, that's just where the center of the track is right now. That doesn't mean that's where the storm's definitely going. So that's, you know, that's just happens to be where the center is right now. But that doesn't mean that it's more likely to hit there than it is, you know, anywhere else in the cone. Oftentimes being in the middle of the cone is like better than being, you know, because the storm rarely goes down the middle of the cone. Why does Walton County have school on a holiday? I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, Columbus Day's a little bit of a fringe holiday. But Walton County is off next Monday. It's like a teacher work day. So, I don't know. But yeah, they're one of the few that has school tomorrow. Bay Haven, North Bay Haven, they have school tomorrow. That's right, because they're charter schools. Thank you, Charlie. Battery operated radio. We have our partners at iHeart too, so I'll be on with Shane in the morning. But of course, you know, if for whatever reason we ever lost power or anything like that, our radio partners will be simulcasting with them to get you through this storm as well once conditions warrant. But I'm going to a hotel in Valdosta. Should I be good? Not necessarily, because you would be, you know, on the eastern side of the storm. I mean, you're better inland because the winds won't be as strong, but like there's no guarantee you're not going to be without power in Valdosta too. I mean, honestly, if I'm going anywhere, I'm headed west. I'm going to maybe Mobile, but definitely like New Orleans, head west. That's where I would go. Maybe north towards like Birmingham, Mississippi, something like that. Nashville. That's kind of would be my thinking, but I would go west. Go west, young man. Anyway. Fill your bathtubs with water. Yep. And I still have all my water from like Irma in my garage. Not all of it because it drank some, but I still have a bunch too. That's a great thing when you like, whenever you finally like, because I know what everyone does, they never do it. But then when you finally do it, like the next time around, it's like everything's all good. You finally have your hurricane supply kit like you're supposed to. It will, I do think it will get rid of the red tide. Too early to say on any of the schools. So I hope that helps everyone, at least for now. Again, if the new run comes in and it looks like the news is going to go on a little bit too late, might jump back in and share that with you or post it on social media. But you know, for now, it's a wait and see approach. But you know, plan as of now, I would be planning as if a Category 3 hurricane were coming to Northwest Florida. That's what I would be doing right now. And that's what I will be doing, you know, tomorrow as far as my house preparations and stuff. Whether it happens or not, it's too early to say, unfortunately. But the reality is you have to prepare before we know 100% what's going to end up happening. So, you know, hope for the best. It's certainly still a possibility. We could see minimal impacts from the storm. But the reality is it's very possible we could have a major hurricane make landfall somewhere in Northwest Florida. But y'all have a good evening, and I'll check in a little bit. And I'll see you tonight after the football game, too. Y'all be good.